Welcome to DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. I'm going to start off straight away by saying there are spoilers for Curse of Strahd in this. That should seem obvious, but what I mean is I can understand a player researching how they can insert their new PC, or if they're becoming a player mid-campaign in someone's campaign, but this is intended for DMs to help DMs out, not players. There's going to be spoilers for players, so if you're a current player or pending player, I encourage you not to carry on watching, as much as it pains me to say that. So, the topic of adding a new PC or player mid-campaign comes up quite a lot in places like the Curse of Strahd subreddit. Whether it be because a brand new player is joining mid-campaign, or it's a replacement for a dead PC who hasn't been revivified, or hasn't been offered, or refused to accept a Dark Gift Resurrection, because that's something that some DMs do. So how do you add a new player or PC mid-campaign? It's a fair question, and I can see DMs worried that it could be a potential logistical headache. The good news is, narratively, Curse of Strahd makes it pretty easy, potentially easier than other campaigns. The Mists did it. The Mists spirited away the individual from their home and into Barovia. Simple as that. Similar to how the PCs were misted in with some of the Curse of Strahd hooks, such as the Creeping Fog hook. Ultimately, a lot of it depends on where you are in the campaign, not just in terms of where you are in the story, but literally where they are, or where you are and where the players are in Barovia. For example, if the players are in or near Vallaki, perhaps a Martikov or Keeper of the Feather finds the new PC, brings them to the Blue Water, and they're literally starting in a tavern. If elsewhere, maybe wolves or werewolves chase them through the Svarlich Woods to the PC's location, for instance, if they're travelling from one location to another. That could be a great first potential encounter, by the way, a hot start for that new PC. Literally, new player, describe how your PC looks. And the player says, oh, they're this class, they're this species. Oh, and roll initiative, by the way. Or they could just find them on the road in less scary circumstances, or at the location they're heading to. For example, if the players at that point are on their way to the winery for the first time, perhaps the new PC is already with Davian Martikov and co. Here's a few other ideas I gleaned from the Curse of Strahd subreddit on various posts. I'll put links to them in the description. Wagon wreck surrounded by a few monsters and dead adventurers. The new PC is the only survivor. That's cool. I like that. This one is for someone who needed to intro a new PC when they're in Irina's house in the village of Barovia, and the person says in quotes, "You are a hero in Neverwinter. You were tasked to clear out some rats in the attic of an old manor. When you go up the stairs, however, you find only mist, not rats. When you go downstairs to ask where the rats are, you find yourself in a completely different house. Congratulations, your PC is now in Irina's house." Nice and easy, nice and simple. Again, the Mists did it. The Mists just took him there. And this one might be my favourite. He literally fell from the sky. And this is regarding a GIF PC who fell from an escape pod from a crashing spelljamming ship. Beautiful. I'd like to tell you about my experience, because I actually did this in my game. Not the GIF falling out of a spaceship thing, but introducing a new player mid-campaign. A player's partner wanted to join, and I said yes. And they were about halfway, maybe even 2/3 of the way through the campaign at that point. And the new PC wanted to play an Air Genasi Paladin. Now, if you've watched some of my wider Ravenloft videos, I've talked about this player before because they're one of the players who stuck around on the post-Curse of Strahd sequel campaign we then moved on to. My players at the time were in Vallaki on their way to the Blue Water Inn, and in the Blue Water Inn they find this Air Genasi Paladin who's confused, foggy-headed, maybe misty-headed would be more accurate, about how they got there. And it was as simple as that. And the PCs then just adopted him, and he joined the group. If you're doing something like this mid-campaign, it's a great opportunity to bring in someone from another domain of dread, if the player is open to that, which can be great for if you plan to extend Curse of Strahd beyond Barovia, such as a wider Ravenloft campaign, like I just mentioned. My new PC that joined, the Air Genasi Paladin, the player didn't have anything in mind for where they were originally from. So I said, how do you like the idea of being a Talon Knight from Volkovnia? It's a domain of dread, similar to Barovia, but they have issues with a recurring zombie apocalypse. The player was game, and we went with that. And the great thing there was they learned a bit more about the domains of dread as a whole. And when they defeated Strahd and could leave Barovia and finish Curse of Strahd, that PC wanted to go home. So Volkovnia was pretty much the next destination. Another option could be to choose a Barovian native if they're human potentially, or well, I know all the Barovian natives are humans, but most of them are. Or someone from a past adventuring party if they're not a human. Maybe consider the Reborn lineage as well from Van Richten's guide. I believe it's going to be updated in the upcoming Horrors Within book. If they were killed by Strahd, and this is them coming back sort of like the Revenants. When I was a player in Curse of Strahd before DMing it, my DM did this. We had someone join us briefly. I don't think they were a full-on player character. I think they just used a stat block. But they were a human fighter ranger type who was, I think, one from, I can't remember all the details, sorry. But they were from one of the settlements, either Vallaki or Kresk. And this backstory was Strahd killed his sister and he wanted revenge. Nice. A lot of it depends, obviously, on the type of PC, their backstory, and so on. If they're a monster hunter type, maybe they want to go to Barovia on purpose, like Van Richten and Esmeralda wanted to. The only risk and downside of the Barovia Domain of Dread native approach is that other PCs might ask them questions, which, makes a lot of sense. They're intrigued about who they are and where they're from and want to ask them lots of stuff. And then you might be giving that new player extra work or homework. Or there might be moments where the player turns to the DM and says, does my PC know this? And that could happen quite a few times, or the DM has to sort of feed the information to the player. It could work especially well if it's a player that's played some or all of Curse of Strahd before, so long as obviously they don't metagame the stuff that PC wouldn't know. And the thing I'd urge caution on is waiting for the perfect moment for when to introduce the PC. Unless the player is okay with it, or unless they're potentially arriving mid-session or late into the session. What you don't want to happen is that they just sit there and wait for the first 2-3 hours of the session just watching because their PC hasn't had a great opportunity to be introduced yet. In my game, my players were in Vallaki already and on their way to the Blue Water Inn, so it felt very natural to just have them be in the Blue Water Inn, and they were introduced fairly quickly. So I'd encourage you to try and intro them as early as possible, where it makes sense to. I appreciate that might be harder to do if they're mid-dungeon, mid-location, but I'm sure you can think of a way. Lastly, I wanted to cover off how to remove players or PCs. So kind of the opposite issue. This could be if a player has to leave, or if, unfortunately, you have a problem player you have to kick from the table. The easiest solution, which may not be the best story-wise, but the easiest solution is just have them disappear. You could either say they don't exist from that point onwards, or they never existed in the first place. This could be especially good if you are removing a difficult problem player, because you might not want to give their PC a send-off, or have to worry about weaving it into the story. You might just want them gone like you want the player gone, so just say they're gone. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Maybe they're killed off screen. Maybe they do some sort of brave sacrifice thing with the player's sign-off. Maybe it's an encounter with Strahd, or a particularly powerful Strahd enemy, and the PC says, I'll hold them back and you guys run. And then that's how they have their send-off. Maybe they stay in one of the settlements. For example, if it's a cleric PC, maybe they decide to stay in with Donovich in the village Barovia, or with Father Lucian in Vallaki. The complication here is if the PCs see them later, would the PCs talk to them? How do you roleplay that? Because it's not the player doing it anymore, it's the DM. I guess, again, it's a case of if the player's happy for the DM sort of take over the PC, turn them in an NPC, that's fine. Otherwise, you might want to consider a option that's kind of like more of a cleaner cut and they're gone, so to speak. Maybe they do some sort of side missions in the background, like they're roaming Svalich Woods doing some stuff. Maybe they're smuggled out by the Vistani. Or maybe they just leave. The Dark Powers and the Mists permit it. Not particularly rules as written, because nobody should be able to leave Barovia except for a chosen few people like the Vistani and anyone Strahd gives permission to, but maybe just make an exception, so as not to complicate it. One thing I'd say is if you decide to go the route of the PC becomes an enemy NPC, such as a Strahd vampire spawn or a werewolf, maybe not only double check if the player is okay with that, because they might not be, but even check if the remaining players are, because it might feel a bit like PvP, even though it's not PvP because it's the PCs fighting what's now essentially an NPC. They might feel a bit weird about attacking a former ally of theirs. But not saying this to say you shouldn't do it, but just maybe just double check with everyone. I'm sure most tables would be, and it does seem pretty epic and cool that they're fighting their old friend turned foe, who's now also a really powerful vampire spawn or werewolf. Could be really cool. If you need ideas on how to kill off a PC, well, my friends, last Halloween I did a video called 99 Ways to Die in Barovia, where I literally detailed 99 different possible ways somebody could die in a Curse of Strahd campaign. So feel free to check that out if you need ideas or inspiration. That's it for this one. Didn't anticipate it would be a very especially long video, but just a few ideas for if somebody's in this very unique scenario where you need to add somebody new or a new PC. Tell me your stories and suggestions. Did you have to add a new PC or new player in the middle of your campaign? What did you do? How did it go? Do you wish you'd done something differently, or did the way you do it go really well? Even if you've never been in that scenario and you're watching this, but you have ideas and suggestions, please share them in comments. It might be useful for people, especially if it's something I've not covered in this video. Apologies for the delay between videos recently. I've been fighting off a sore throat and cold. I don't know if you can tell, my voice might be a little bit deeper. And it was frustrating. I was struggling to know which video to do next, and then wrote up all the notes for this, was about to record, sore throat struck. I was like, that's going to delay me a few more days. But I got a few ideas for both Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft videos coming up, so hopefully it's kind of just a small, brief gap, and then I can get on with it with more videos. I've teased a few times that I do want to do a Babylon Saga video. It was one of those things where it's like easier said than done, because I then started to do the research and I'm like, there's a lot I got to research here, because I want to do it justice. Similar to the Ravenloft video, I want to cover like how to roleplay her, extra resources for her, how to run her in combat. And obviously she's got quite a complicated stat block compared to potentially other NPCs. So I do have plans to do that, but it might not necessarily be one of the next videos. I do want to talk about ideas for the third winery gem. So for those of you who know your Curse of Strahd lore, there's 3 magic gems at the winery. One is in Yes the Hill, one is in Berez, and the third one is DM's discretion. Talk about a few ideas of where it could be and what I did in my campaign. And a new potential controversial 3 or 4, or that should be the 5th video now, talking about whether you should or shouldn't tie in backstories, PC backstories into Barovia and Curse of Strahd. I'm going to say no and explain why. And then on the Ravenloft front, I'm currently running the Shadowlands for my players, which is kind of split into sort of 3-ish sections, one of which is called Avonlea, and they've nearly finished Avonlea, so I'll probably do a quick video about Avonlea, split that domain of Dread into 3 parts instead of one long video. And I also recently bought Mordenkainen's Fiendish Folio on D&D Beyond and Monsters of Drakkenheim as well. So I'll probably do 2 videos where I say here are 5, 10 or 15 monsters you can use from those sources and add into your Ravenloft campaign. And this is where this monster works well in this domain of Dread, and consider this monster for that domain of Dread, and so on. And I keep forgetting to mention this as well. I recently started a YouTube membership. It's a bit like Patreon, but YouTube's own thing, where you can get access to emoji, custom emoji you can use in comments. I'm actually going to get more made in the future, different Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft NPCs. And if you go for the slightly higher tier, the second tier up, not the lowest, you also get access to videos a little early. There's members only videos, which is like behind the scenes stuff about me, giving news about the channel and my experiences running the channel, stuff like that. Oh, and discounts for my DM's Guild resources as well, which I feel like I should mention. I think if you were to get those at the discounted rates, it'd probably pay for the first month or 2 of membership anyway. And we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.